Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. The end of my first day off. I didn't crash. I kind of went off on my house, getting little things done around the house. Very grateful to be able to flake out all by myself. I wasn't even online today. I don't even recall even taking in some lessons. Just before I came live, I just actually went in and put a few on my watch later lists because right after my live show, I'm going to make myself another cup of coffee and I'm going to sit down and I am truly going to flake. Grateful. Now I have 2 days off. What am I going to do with those 2 days off? Definitely have to make some movement forward. I think maybe it might be a good idea to connect with Mother Nature a little bit, right? See what kind of movement I could make, what I could be inspired or motivated by, right? And yeah, just be appreciative that I actually have 3 days off. Lots of people work 7 days a week for almost nothing. I am grateful for this country that I live in. And in fact, a big part of what I'm doing here right now is to reach some people, that might have had some of those same experiences I had when I was a kid that made us into human beings, right? We grew into adults that probably didn't contribute as much as we could have, we should have, or we would have liked to, in all honesty. So, I would like to be that good citizen. It's my responsibility. I know now, right? And they say ignorance is no excuse, but I don't know the problem. How can I find a solution? And so I'm grateful for the answers that come across my path. And today, you guys, I was looking at our notes here. I can't believe it, but we are going on to word number 25. And hi, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And we have been picking a powerful word each week randomly and just going into it for the whole week, looking at it in different perspectives. The first day I picked the word, it is my very first thoughts. It's my the first perspective that comes to mind that I go with. And after that, well, it's kind of a free fall. Sometimes it's going into it with some experiences, quite often. And sometimes it's going through an experience that maybe somebody else had, or an adventure somebody else had, or maybe it's a new discovery, right? I love discoveries. I love discoveries. Discoveries are like surprises, magnificent surprises, right? It shows that we're not know it alls, that we don't know everything, right? I like to see us get thrown for a loop every once in a while. It keeps us on our toes, number one. Secondly, right, it reminds us that we're only human, right? And again, we're not perfect. So it is late tonight. Thank you all for popping in. And for those of you who pop in tomorrow to catch that, sorry I didn't come in a little bit earlier. But on the other hand, not so sorry because I feel good in this moment. Even though it's the end of the day, I feel good about what I've accomplished in my personal life. And I set myself up well to make some movement in the next couple of days without that pressure on, because anything that I needed to get done, I got done. So anything I get done now is the gravy, is the sprinkles, is the movement forward, right? Okay, you guys, let's just pick this word right now. Let's have a sip first. Mm, make a good cup of coffee. Let's pick this word. First impression, first thing that comes into my mind when we pick this word, we don't have too many words left. We may even start hitting some of those same words again. It'll be in the moment to decide whether or not we want to delve into it just for the moment, just for that day, or we want to carry on with it for the whole week again just because I didn't get it. Remember what happened with acceptance? And oh boy, the second week that I did acceptance, I got I got lessons. Guaranteed I got lessons. So, I skim a lot of it. But sometimes it's just a matter of planting that seed or giving somebody that moment to reflect on something, right? That is the hit, right? And whatever signals that to you, oh, it's only a signal, isn't it? Okay, you guys, let's just get into this word. This week, we are going to be talking the entire week, and the word we're going to be talking about is flexibility. Now, isn't that a strange one? But isn't that a very true one and a very much needed lesson for this week? I think, the first thing that comes into my mind is to be open to other ideas, to be able to expand a little bit outside ourselves a little bit, right? Not to be so constricted and not so stringent with our ideas. Remember what I said? We don't know it all. And I love those discoveries that remind me that we don't know everything, that this world is much bigger and has a lot more surprises for us as we as we move as we move along. But as we move along, right, we're going to be butting heads with new adventures, new experiences, new understanding about the human mind, the human emotions, the human physicality. We're also going to be competing in this digital age with creations of well, can you call them beings? Man, these robots are popping up everywhere, and they sure do look and sound realistic. I can spot them immediately, but that doesn't mean I always will. This is the beginning of this age where, you know, there may come a point where we marry robots, right? When we're so lonely, that we are so socially dysfunctional that we don't know how to interact or connect with other humans. And I think a lot of this steering that we're getting in the moment is to better set us up so that we can resolve some of these really social issues that can and will wreak havoc on our evolution unless we can get a handle on it. I truly believe that we are in a very crucial moment in mankind's movement, that we as a human race have that potential to become extinct, right? And whether it's through our own hands or unintentionally, like myself, right? It was unintentional that I didn't have children, right? I would have made probably not the most amazing mother, to be honest, right? Knowing my upbringing, knowing my programming, knowing in the epigenetics what the likelihood my children would have grown up to be. I would have overspoilt them, overcompensated, right? Possibly, because, right, we always want better for our children, right? We always want better for our children than what we had for ourselves, don't you? And sometimes you say, oh, I'd never do that. I'm going to be so much a better mom, right? I'm not going to make that mistake. And we overcompensate. And what do? We create coddled children who can't do for themselves. They can't stand on their own 2 feet. They don't find their own dependence. And then also, there was that possibility where I might not have known any better, and I might have been like some of those caregivers and those influences in my life, right? In that programming. And I might have been, right? Maybe not so good of a mom. So either way, it might have, most likely would not have been good, right? A lot of these ideas that I've woken up to have come very, very late in my life, right? Right? 57 years old before I woke up to any of these ideas, right? People don't start having kids at 57 years old, right? That would have been a different story. I think I would have made the most amazing mom ever, right? But, any time before then, no, I don't think I would have contributed well. So, was it unintentionally that I was motherless, that I didn't, contribute to that family lineage, going down the road? Or was that the plan all along? Was that what I was steered to, what I was dictated to? It wasn't for the lack of trying, right? It wasn't for the lack of trying. And I did have pregnancies, but they never held, right? And because, again, that realization that I started my own personal life so late, that I found that joy in myself so late in life. When I met my husband, right? I was still a child myself, and I was enjoying my life, and I was testing the waters, and children weren't high on the list. And of course, I got married later. My husband was 10 years younger than me, but I was 30 years old when I got married. So the clock was already ticking. And by that time, I started putting the pressure on, right? Right? That time clock really truly was ticking, and it wasn't for the lack of trying. But at some point, you got to say, well, that's the plan. So I worry about mankind because there are lots of people like me. And for a lot of those problems, why I started so late were for social issues that I had, right? In that programming. And I had a moment of revelation. How long it lasted, I don't know. But I did have my moment in the sun, right? And in that joy, I was able to find some movement and have some experiences in that. But that only happened because I expanded, right? That I pushed myself further than what I truly thought that I was capable of doing in all truth, right? Never thought that I would succeed in something, but sometimes it's just a matter of getting started. And when we get started, sometimes there's something else that kind of lines up beside us or behind us and gives us that little bit of help, that little bit of momentum. And the next thing you know, you've accomplished and you don't even realize, right? Sometimes you don't even recognize that accomplishment. That's why I'm a big believer in looking backwards a little bit, right? To see that movement, because from the day to day to day, we never see the improvements, do we? Right? Today feels almost the same as it did yesterday. You can tell I'm stretching that a little bit. No day for me is the same as the day before. But as an example, right? It's not necessarily to say there was any movement yesterday, but one day for the next for me is totally different. And that's the way I like it. That's the way it's always been for me. It's part of that, well, paying attention and working with what comes across my path, but I'm only able to do that because I expand. I get out of my comfort zone, right? And that's not my saying, but you guys have probably heard that yourself many, many times. But it's it's a true, it's so true because when you're uncomfortable, when you feel that agitation, that nervousness, that little bit of anxiety, that stress, right? That's coming from something. And that something is usually movement. It's almost always movement. So when you feel that way, that's a good sign, and that's a sign that you are working out of uh, something that's not comfortable for you. And so when you start feeling comfortable for you, or when you start feeling comfortable in what you're doing, then that's that signal. Okay, you have to add another ingredient. You have to take another step. You have to stretch a little bit more, right? Because it's like a good pair of shoes that you bought. You paid a lot of money for those shoes and you put them on and you plan on wearing them to work and you start walking down the block and all of a sudden your big toe is just throbbing. But you paid a lot of money for those shoes and they're not going to take them back because you walked halfway to work already in them and you're stuck with them. They're your work shoes now, right? But over time, right? We expand in those pair of shoes. We stretch them out, right? Like memory foam. And they get to be more comfortable. Unless you got a couple of sizes too small. And if that's the case, well, silly you. We learn from our mistakes, right? But I like this word this week for flexibility. So the first thing that came out of my mind was this idea is to expand, to get a little bit uncomfortable, not to get so comfortable that it slows your movement right down. I like to feel that urgency. I like to think that what I'm doing now has some importance to it, that there's a little bit of time constraint or a little bit of what is it, quality management, like that it's like that surgeon is needed this moment, not when he enters university his first year, right? We need him now. And so there's that urgency to get him trained, but there's no point in rushing him through it, right? And skipping the lessons because, right, we need him to be good as well as we need him yesterday, right? So sometimes it's in that patience, right? That just being persistent, just making sure that we're moving all the time. I'm a big believer in the baby steps. As long as you're moving, as long as there's a little bit of tension in that elastic band, we're good. We're good, right? We can't worry about that time constraint. We got no control over that because we can rush through 100 miles an hour, but that's not going to serve us well. It's not going to serve anybody else well, right? I'd like my surgeon to be very, very well trained before he opens me up 100%. Okay, you guys, that's my first impression. It's a late one today, but I wanted just a nice short one tonight because I wanted to have a day in my apartment, relaxing, contemplating, thinking, about some of that movement that I would like to be doing, some of that stretching, right? Some of that flexibility, right? Thinking, do I have the gumption? Taking a look, looking at some possibilities, right? Absorbing the notion, making a little bit of movement, and it's minuscule in its movement in the moment, but it's movement nonetheless. And it makes for a nice ending to a nice day off. And hopefully a nice little chit chat right before we all go to bed. Well, if you're living on this side of the world anyway. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see each other tomorrow.